I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the hidden truths of tithing with Paul, a wise master builder without the tithe, the code of silence. It's written by a wonderful author. His name is Jonathan Kithcart. This eye-opening book reveals why Jesus, Paul, and early Christians may have had a different perspective on tithing than commonly believed. Join us as we explore these historical insights that challenge traditional views and encourage giving from the heart. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Books to Life Marketing for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his powerful book. The links are below this interview. Jonathan, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
You too, Mr. Crawford.
My pleasure. Call me Logan, my friend.
Hi, Logan.
Okay, no problem at all. Um, why did you decide to focus on Paul, the disciple, as an example of tithing?
Well, I was instructed by the Spirit of truth as I was reading the scriptures. The Spirit of truth, which is spoken of in the Gospel of John 14, 15, and 16, and First John 4, 6, revealed to me when I was reading the book of Malachi, when I was first started out as a born-again Christian, I was reading Malachi, and the Spirit of truth revealed to me that tithing is not, he said, this is not for the church. Okay, years went by, I didn't really pursue it. But all the time that I was in church, I would understand that it was something wrong here. And one day, me and my wife was at a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the minister, he brought up a young youth, and the young little boy said, look at your neighbor and ask him this question: are you a God robber? And that really pricked me in the spirit. I said, this has got to stop, because the next generation is being deceived. And Lord had me to get busy and to write to 10 ministers and ask him that one question: did the Apostle Paul teach tithing? Because during this situation with the tithing, the tithers always will have an escape route to say, well, that's what you believe. This is what we believe. This is what we teach. But when you have to answer the question, did the Apostle Paul teach tithing? Then you're confronted with the word right on point. Mm-hmm. Did the Apostle Paul teach it? You have to answer it, but they don't answer it. That's their dilemma. That is why we have the code of silence. Something is wrong. And now they have a zeal for this thing, but not according to knowledge nor understanding.
The folks at home who don't quite understand what tithing is, explain to them about tithing.
Tithing is instructions that the Lord gave to the children of Israel. And what the tithe is about what, where, when, and to whom. And it was always crops and animals that was to be given as the tithe for the children of Israel. Now, to put this into the New Testament, someone will have to change the scripture and the requirement of the tithe from crops and animals to money. Who did this? And where is it? And was everybody required to pay tithes in the Old Testament? No, but in the New Testament, everybody's required to pay a tithe. Now, everybody, Logan, every minister doesn't teach tithing. Some teach grace giving, which is the correct way to give. In Jeremiah 3:15, the Lord said, I would give you pastors according to my heart that would teach you with knowledge and understanding. It's all about the heart thing. That's why in Corinthians, Paul said, give according to how the Lord has prospered you. Give willingly according to in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard thing by faith. Now people in the church, they don't know and understand a lot of things. Like the first temple of Israel was not built by tithe money, but God, the Lord asked them to give willingly from your heart. And that's Exodus 25:35. It's always a hard thing. And the first temple that was built, Solomon's temple, willing heart. The
You feel that
reconstruction,
the push for tithing is built upon greed?
it is, because Logan, you got to understand that during the Apostle Paul's time, when he was teaching and instructing all these churches, which were only assemblies and congregations, there were no church buildings at least 300 years after Christ. No church buildings. The Romans weren't having that. And tithing wasn't amplified until at least 800 years after Christ, by a Frankian warlord called Charlemagne. Now, a lot of people don't understand that if Paul taught tithing, he would be one of the biggest hypocrites in the Bible, because he was taught so much against the law, knowing that we can't be justified by the law, and then he'd be teaching tithing to the Gentiles who were coming out of paganism. He would be a really big hypocrite by rebuking Peter for his hypocrisy and Barnabas in Galatians. Now, people don't understand that Paul would have to have taught Barnabas, and Barnabas was a Levite himself. Paul would have to teach Barnabas, Titus, Silas. He would have to teach them all how to teach tithing. This is ridiculous, and it's unscriptural. The 10% thing is not of God. It never has been of the Lord. Nowhere in the New Testament are we required to pay any percentage of our income. Nowhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. What do you hope readers take away from your book? And what does somebody do if they're in a congregation now and they're being pressured to give 10% of everything they earn to the church?
I would ask them, if they're serious about serving the Lord in spirit and truth, ask their pastor, which tithe are we supposed to be paying? Because there were at least 3 or 4 tithes. Which one are we supposed to pay? And did John the Baptist tithe? Did Jesus tithe? Why do we have to pay this 10% when it's not even required in the new covenant? But people need to think. They need to think.
Well, I think this book will help them think. It's an eye-opener for sure. And before we leave you today, what exactly do you hope people get from reading this book? That they learn to understand the true meaning of the tithe and the importance of grace, as opposed to some random figure that we've been told of 10% to give to our church?
Yes, I hope that they would understand that they have a choice, and to listen to what the scripture says. And it says to stand fast in the liberty where Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. That's Galatians 5:1. Freedom in giving. It's all about the heart and all about faith. It's not about percentages. It's not about threats. None of that.
And what did
That is
Jesus do? He overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. And if you have if you're in a congregation now that seems like it's too money driven, it's pressuring you to tithe to a
Yeah,
limit that you can't afford it, or you
that's not
feel it is
God.
unreasonable, find a different church, find a different
That's
congregation, find a different
correct.
pastor.
That is it. That is the right thing to do. Because
Absolutely. And this
God is
book, what's that, my friend?
God, Lord is not under pressure. You notice when they try to pressure you, they say always they're teaching their false doctrine, their heresies, perversion. They give it credence by saying God said. But what about Jesus? What did he say? He's the head of the church. Everything has to go through him. Come
Exactly.
on, think.
Exactly. And God didn't say give 10% so the pastor can have a
No,
Mercedes Benz,
no,
right?
no, he didn't. Or buy a helicopter or 5 houses. And Jesus didn't even have a place to lay his head. And you want to have all these
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. Well, Paul, Jonathan, I appreciate you opening up our eyes today. The name of the book is Paul, a Wise Master Builder Without the Tithe, The Code of Silence. It's written by Jonathan Kithcart. It's an eye-opening book that reveals why Jesus, Paul, and early Christians had a different perspective on tithing than commonly believed and commonly peddled by some churches. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan.
I appreciate your time, sir, and your insight as well as your wisdom. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.